Hey guys, Frank here with another episode of Modern Church Leader. Super excited about today's episode. I'm here with my new buddy, Brent Dusing, who actually started TruePlay Games. Is the name of the company TruePlay Games?
Yes, sir.
I mean, I'm actually super stoked because I have, as I told you, triplet 12-year-old boys. So I have 3 gamers in my house. I was mentioning to you, I probably let them play too much and need to ratchet that back. But we kind of live in video game land amongst school and sports and all that. So I love what you guys are doing. Video games for kids that are faith-based Christian things. So welcome to the show, man. Stoked to have you.
Good to be with you, Frank. Thank you.
Yeah, love it, love it. Give us, I don't know, just tell us your story. Give us a bit of the background and kind of, the semi-fast version of how you got into making games for kids, Christian games for kids.
My background, I've been a serial technology entrepreneur for almost 2 decades. I started a company that you might not have heard of, but you might have used if you've ever shopped at a grocery store, Kroger or Safeway or any of their affiliates, and a lot of other chains too. And they said, use your cell phone to save money or use digital coupons. I started that company. We invented that technology. We sold the company. We're in thousands and thousands of grocers all across the country and had millions of people use it. And then I built some games that some people might have played. We built some games. Remember when Facebook used to have games? Journey of Jesus. Remember there was a Farmville, right, which is very popular. You might remember that.
Totally remember Farmville.
We didn't build Farmville, but we built games that were a little bit like that, but that told biblical stories. So Journey of Jesus, Journey of Moses. We had over 7 million people play them, and that was exciting. We had a lot of non-Christians play those games. And so my co-founders and I, what we kind of learned was, okay, we can tell biblical stories and build games that people enjoy, that they play for long periods of time, that they play frequently, that millions will play. And so that was kind of the key takeaway from that. And then around 2018, to make a really, really long story short, I was called to what I do, and God was very clear with me in multiple different examples, if we could get into if you want. But part of it was just the problem. Here's what I mean. I was about to turn 40 at the time, and I was bothered by what I was seeing. Anxiety, suicide, depression rates at all-time highs for kids. The average male exposed to pornography when he's 11 years old. Mm-hmm. Less than half of families now go to church. Brain damage rife in kids, schizophrenia, things like that, because of the proliferation of the legalization of drug use. And the worst stat of all is that 31% of children believe in God in America, compared to 62% of adults. So in other words, that number's been halved. Why? Because kids are on screens 52 and a half hours a week. Mm-hmm. Unfortunately, the average child's at church 30 minutes a week. And we're coming from a place at TruePlay of, we want people in church. We know pastors out there are doing everything they can.
Yeah.
The problem is, from Sunday afternoon until Saturday night, typically, kids are on screens. And what they're getting is toxic. I mean, look, I'm not going to tell you Candy Crush is evil. No, fine. It's like bubble gum. You could chew it. It's not going to do much for you. But I am going to tell you there's a lot of poison. I'm going to tell you there's Grand Theft Auto. You know about that. I'm going to tell you that Roblox is in the middle of a lawsuit where a lot of parents in the class action are saying there was sexual predation against my children, and you didn't do anything about it. Okay.
Right.
I'm going to tell you there's a lot of first-person shooter games, and if I'm not going to say it's going to turn somebody into a first-person shooter, but I'm going to tell you that when there have been shootings, school shootings, consistently the story is that the shooter was involved in hyper-violent content, including the Uvalde shooting that happened 2 years ago, including the Nashville shooting. If you get underneath the headlines and the hype, there's a lot of toxic content involved. And I'm going to tell you that the anxiety, the suicide, the depression rates, there's this toxic agenda against our children. Sexual content, we all know this, that brands and companies we used to trust and love are pushing sexual content on your children at 5 years old and making you have a conversation you're not ready to have yet.
Yeah.
We work so hard as parents. And, if you're listening, if you're a parent, you're a pastor, you're a youth pastor, you're a Sunday school leader, you work so hard to teach values in your kids, and they walk out the door and they get bombarded with essentially poison for their souls. And then we wonder, why is it that only 31% of kids believe in God? It's because we're not giving. While I believe that churches are doing an amazing job and the best they can, every other facet of society besides Christian homes are working against the veracity of the Bible, the reality of Jesus Christ, the love of God. And that's what we bring with TruePlay in an entertainment platform for kids. That's a bunch of games and comics and videos done in a really high quality manner, but that everything we do is, our guarantee is we're going to bring God's truth right to the person experiencing it. Yeah.
I love it, man. I mean, kids are playing games. Like it's going to happen. There's really not, I mean, I guess you could just do no tech but that's just unlikely to actually happen. So making great games. I mean, there's a lot of stuff that gets done that's not competing with the level of games or content, right? That, the just general world of gaming creation is making, right? Like, people are making really good games. So having a company that's focused on making great, like excellent, top quality games that are based on Christian values, Christian content is cool. Like, I think it's such a cool mission. So you got into that. That was 2018. Is that what you said?
Well, that was the calling. We really started the company in earnest really around 2020. It's
2020.
Anyway,
got it.
That's essentially when we started, and then we've actually it took us 3.5 years to build a product, because you have to understand, TruePlay is not just a game; it's a platform. It's essentially like a Netflix or Disney Plus, where you subscribe and you have access in one app to dozens and dozens of experiences, games and digital comics and videos. Again, and so much content, you probably couldn't even get through it all.
Yeah.
So we had to build all the content ourselves, most of it anyway. Vis-a-vis, if you think about Netflix, they kind of rented everybody's content, then they built original content. We had to do the opposite. There wasn't hardly anything great for kids that was Christian. There was hardly a thing. So we had to build all these games and all these videos. Now, on the comic side, we partnered with the Action Bible, which many of you may know.
My kids love the Action Bible. Like, I absolutely love the Action Bible.
We partnered with another group, Kingstone Comics, which does amazing work, very Christian, very, very high quality art and illustration. We have a lot of Kingstone's comics as well. So we were fortunate to partner with people like that. We really are selective about
the Action Bible is actually, sorry to cut you off, I was just having a thought. Like, the Action Bible is actually a very good example of creating something that's like excellent. Like, the Action Bible is done so well. Like, the illustrations and the way it was all put together is so good that, like, my kids have read that things like numerous times because of just how well it was done.
They nailed it. I have 2 daughters and a son, and my son, first of all, I think thought that the Action Bible was the real Bible until he was about 8.
Heck yeah.
And then secondly, he would always ask to read it. Like, he would come to me just as often as I would come to him for, hey, it's Bible time, it's story time. Papa, can we read the Bible? Like, that, and that, why? Because it was a quality product, and it was entertaining, and it had God's truth. They hit all the checks, and that's what we really are doing at TruePlay, right?
So let's get into the kind of games. Sounds like you kind of gaming, you were doing the Facebook stuff, so it's TruePlay is like an extension of that. You're like, there's more here, let's go create this company. What was the first thing, like, what's the first game that you guys did, and how did you understand if it's like, is this working or not?
So we had built three games at Lightside that it had over 7 million people play them: Journey of Jesus, Journey of Moses, and a game called Stained Glass. The Moses and Jesus games were built on the web, so those are being remastered and redone. The Stained Glass game was built as a mobile game, so we redid a few things and sped it up and kind of modernized it a little bit, but mostly it's the same game that was actually fairly popular. We put that on the platform. So Stained Glass, just so you know, it's a game where it's a match 3, so you might have played Candy Crush or Bejeweled Blitz or Royal Match. It's that kind of style. You're matching stained glass pieces. They form a stained glass window once you've done your matches, and the stained glass window then comes to life, and a character from the Bible tells you their story. So Eve, Noah, Sarah, Moses, tell their story from a first person kind of heartfelt perspective. So it's less about this third person zoom out narrative. And it's more like kind of like you and I are talking like, hey, so what was it like when you sinned and you had to look God in the face and he says, where are you? And there's a tear in his eye because he knows where you are physically. He means, where are you in your heart?
Yeah.
Or Noah, we have this scene of him standing on the ark and this, this grayish green, sickly waves and the rain's coming down and the storms and the boat. And he's holding his wife and she's crying. Because, I don't ever hear this talk about much, but think about Noah's wife. Everyone she knew, her whole family was dead. Her parents, her brothers and sisters, nieces and nephews. At the time, people lived a long time. So presumably she had a large extended family. They all got killed. So, she's devastated and crying. And Noah's saying, I wanted to cry too, but I had to be the strong one. And kind of getting inside, like, what's it like to live? You're in the ark. You're worried. Gosh, I sure hope there's not a leak. Gosh, did I pack enough food? Is this really going to end? The devil's probably in your ear telling you all this garbage.
Mm-hmm.
And learning, no. Ultimately, God kept his word. Ultimately, the rain stopped. Ultimately, we settled on dry land. Ultimately, we built a celebration and the rainbow came out and God promised, God was true to his promises and gave us another promise. So stories like that is what Stained Glass is about. The next thing we did was we built a whole new IP, a whole new universe of characters that we call the Rimverse. So it's like rhyme without the E, and there's a reason for that. Characters like Maple and Oliver and Lucas. And if you go to our website, you'll see characters who they're really fun, cute, fun characters. They're animals that wear other animal costumes. So Maple's a bunny rabbit and she wears a tiger costume. And Lucas is a skunk and he wears a crocodile outfit. And they've all got their own personalities. They live in this fantasy world, of course, but in their world, God is real, the Bible's true, and there's real evil. And even though they look a little bit ridiculous, they have the personalities and problems that children have today. Maple is she's our star female character, very much believes in God. Her life verse is, God tells me to be strong and courageous. But sometimes that means that Maple charges into trouble without thinking about the consequences. Sometimes it means that Maple mispronounces her words or kind of goes down the wrong path and somebody tries to correct her and it's irrelevant because, she's right and they're wrong and she doesn't care about anybody else's opinion. Oliver is a fox who wears a bear costume. He's adopted. And he's kind of believes in God, but kind of isn't sure because he's a scientist. He's read a lot of science books and all his science books, they don't really talk about God. Mm-hmm. So he's not really sure, why do people pray? And so sometimes him and Maple get stuck and Maple's like, okay, well, there's a scene where they get stuck about midway through the story. And Maple goes, I don't know what else. We just have to pray. There's nothing else we can do. And Oliver's like, well, what does that mean? What do you mean pray? What are we going to do? She goes, here, just give me your hand. God, hi, God, it's me, Maple. We really need your help right now. Amen. Oliver goes, wait, that's it? Yeah, that's it. That's all you have to do? So there's moments like that, right? There's Lucas, who's a skunk, and he's adopted. Sorry, his brother died a year ago, and he hasn't processed it. He's on the autism spectrum. He's also this brilliant inventor, though. He's built a suit that flies and shoots laser beams that looks like a really super cool, robot crocodile. And he doesn't understand that when his mom says, your brother's up there with God, he thinks his brother's in space. So he doesn't get the concept of heaven or who God is. He doesn't believe in God at all.
Yeah.
And he goes on this journey. Long story, gets on a spaceship and blasts into space to try to find his lost brother. But I'm not going to give too much away, but in the journey, actually finds out who God is. So there's adventures and there's bad guys and there's laser beams and there's spaceships and there's monsters and there's drama and there's cliffhangers and there's actually a lot to the story that's kind of this real epic story that's really layers out over time. I'm really proud of the writing team and it's very, very well done. But it's fun, but everything contains God's truth. There's the Bible is discussed and that God is there and they pray and there's evil. And there's evil people who want to shut the Bible down and take it away and silence. And so that plays out over time. So the first two games we built were games tied into that universe.
Yeah, very cool. And when did the games launch? Like when did the first one?
Well, the
Or maybe
platform, so we released everything as one platform. So so it's one platform with a bunch of games. We have, gosh, I think there's now 11 games. We've got another King David's Battles comes out at the end of the month. There'll be, I mean, there's dozens and dozens and dozens, over hundreds of hours of content. So we released it all as one piece, and we launched in August of last year. So it hasn't been very long.
So it's like,
And
what's the adoption been like since you launched it?
I mean,
What?
I'll tell you this: we are growing. It's been awesome. The feedback. I'll share a few things as for parents. One of the things we learned is that the average child uses TruePlay for an hour and a half a week, and because everything we do contains God's truth, that means if you take your kid to church once a week, we can more than double their exposure of getting into God's word, which, and frankly, for the price of taking your friend to Starbucks once a month, which I think is a fair trade.
Right.
That's just me. Well, the other thing we've learned is, and this blew me away and exceeded our expectations, if you have any one of the top games in the App Store, Roblox or Fortnite, a child is, if they have TruePlay and they have one of those top games, if they play both of them, they're more likely to come back and play one of our games than they are one of those. That's how much the kids are enjoying the games and the stories and the characters. We get a lot of feedback from parents about how it's affecting their child's walk. We had a mother write us the other day who said they went on a bike ride, kids getting frustrated, and then he turns and he says, "No, God made me to be a brave and courageous fox," which is one of the characters kind of says that. And she says, and they go around the house and they play act, fighting monsters in the name of Jesus. And another one told us about how there's a kid was learning Bible verses and then saying them out loud when they were out at the beach. Another one, we had a girl come to the office to just test some games, and she saw a scripture written in the game, and she says, "Mom, what's that?" And the mom said, "Oh, that's the Bible," because the family didn't go to church. So we view our mission as, look, if you're a Christian family, we want to strengthen your child's faith rather than fight against it like every other entertainment company's doing. Right. And if you're not a Christian family, look, number one, this is something positive and uplifting and encouraging for your child that you can trust. And frankly, by the way, more than that, hopefully we're going to introduce you to the reality of God and Jesus Christ.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And that has been happening, which has been pretty cool. Yeah.
Love it. Tell me what it's like to build a game. Like how do you like building the company, right? Like how did you get I don't even know what it's like to build a game. So the writers, the engineers, the sort of team built around this mission and wanting to build these games. But what does all that look like?
Yeah, well, we've been so blessed to have an amazing team. And the way it works is we have game teams. So their job is to build each of these games. And then we have other people whose job is to kind of build the platform and the technology itself, so the app that everything sits in and all the, making sure everything works well. And so there's a lot of different, functions in the organization. But the way we build games is basically this. We will say, okay, let's ask ourselves 3 or 4 key questions. The first is, what story do we want to tell in the game? In other words, are we telling a story from the Bible? Are we telling a story from the Rim verse that, Maple and Oliver and Lucas, the characters I described? What's the actual story we're getting across? And 2, as a corollary, what is the message we want kids to get out of the game? So in other words, in the Maple game, it's really about truth. It's what happened was this evil queen has confiscated all the Bibles in their society. And as a result, the society has deteriorated. Now, the kids don't realize that because they're young kids. They don't know that happened a while back. But they go into the forest and it's all essentially destroyed and it's sick. And they don't even know who the evil queen is yet. But that kind of unfolds through the drama. Another game we made, Benjamin and the Armor of Logos, that game's about Ephesians 6. The armor of God. So a boy is fighting these monsters and learning to be courageous and learning about the armor of God as he fights through these monsters. Another game, one of my favorite stories that we've done is Ava's story. Ava's a little girl whose parents are divorced. She's getting bullied. And she's getting told all these nasty things about herself by other people and by kind of almost demonic little monsters. And she has to learn, no. Your identity is not who people say you are or who the enemy says you are. Your identity is you're a child of God. Your identity is who God made you to be and who God tells you who you are. And in a world today where the concept of identity itself is under attack against children, that might be one of the most important messages we could be telling them. So to answer your question, second one is what's the message? Third is what's the gameplay style? Like, what are you doing in the game? We have a puzzle game. We have multiple kind of endless runner games. We have some combat games. We have a word game. We have multiple stuff kind of continuing to come out. We have a bubble shooter game coming out about praise and worship in a few months. So it's like, what's the gameplay style? And then once we've nailed those three things, you kind of people do pitches all the time. So, hey, we'd like to build a game like this. We'd like to build a game like that. And like any creative organization, we don't say yes to everything. There's a process. We have to check the following boxes. It has to be fun. It has to be fun, or else kids aren't going to play it. Yep. Number two, it's got to be done with excellence, right? Number three, it's got to be done with beauty. We serve a God of beauty. I think, unfortunately, as Christians, sometimes we forget that. I think there are certain people like, Jesus culture, it's music, Hillsong's music, what Lauren Daigle's been doing, other people too, but, they've brought that back into music. I think that there's some people bringing it back in movies. We like to think we're doing that for games. And then lastly, though, it's got to contain God's truth. We're not just here to be safe and family friendly. We are, but we're only safe and family friendly because we're gonna be on the foundation of biblical principles, on the reality of God and Jesus Christ, and that's the foundation from which we come. Because we're not going to waste you or your child's time with something that's just going to be bubblegum. No. We're going to feed them spiritual red meat and vegetables, if you will. Yeah.
So I'm trying to get down to, because I'm fascinated by this, and I think it's super. Again, I think what you're doing is amazing. How'd you build the first game? Like, did you go out as a business, right? Like,
sure,
you built the platform, all the things. Like, but like, did you go find like great developers that you knew wanted to work on a project like this? Story writers,
so kind of how we built the company, I guess, is kind of the question. Yeah. So what we did was
a little more around like kind of building the business and getting the
so
team
here's
together.
What we did. So we built this. So I've been a serial technology entrepreneur and spent, I guess, most of my career in Silicon Valley, although I've been in Austin for 9 years. So what I try to do is apply what I learned from best practices of Silicon Valley businesses. And if you think about, even though I don't agree with how they've affected our society, Google and Facebook and Twitter and all these companies that have created this massive amount of value and built products that everybody uses. How do you apply the way they've operated, but to achieve Christian mission? That's the whole premise of how we operate. We did what every other startup does. Is we started out as my co-founders and I. We then built kind of the first concepts of the games, recruited the beginnings of the team. Once we did that, we then kind of proved that, we checked that box. The next step then was we've hired a big team because we had to build everything in parallel. And so one team's job was build the platform. In other words, the actual app itself, the back end, the billing information, making sure everything stays up and it runs and it works well. And then multiple teams that were game teams, smaller teams than the platform team, but still sizable teams, to build each individual game along the lines kind of we discussed. And then, then you have the functions in any business. You have a recruiting team and you have HR and you have marketing teams, who's, with their important roles as well. And then, so you're kind of running these multiple development efforts in parallel, and you're kind of making sure each individual path, if you will, has milestones they're checking off. And then you're working to make sure that everything gets coordinated. And a lot of it, part of it is the way you run the company and your processes. Part of it is the team you hire, and we have an amazing team, which I'm happy to talk about. And part of it is God's grace. Part of it is you make mistakes anyway, and a lot of the time God makes a way despite But despite that,
Yeah,
does that answer
absolutely.
your question, or was there more you
Yeah. No,
were?
I'm just building a game company. There's not a lot of you out there in the like Christian space, So I think unpacking that, understanding like how you even bring a game to market is interesting. I have a buddy through the kids, kind of friends at school and everything, and he works for a game studio. So they've gone over and they've done like they got early access to, it's like he builds like VR games.
Oh,
And
cool.
so like,
Cool.
he's like, they got a game and it's sort of in like early beta mode. And so he's got it loaded on the things and all the kids are playing it, but they have to give feedback. Like the whole point was like, you
Yes.
get to play it, but only here at the house. You got to come over, play it at the house because it's only on these headsets. You give feedback on it and all that. So I've learned some things around
Well,
game
what
development.
your friend does, that is exactly how the best video games are built. And the best pieces of consumer software, if you guys, you're listening, if you're using any social media products, that's what they do. And that's what we did. So, you start with your own convictions about what your goal to build is, but there's that old adage, the customer is always right.
Yeah.
And so what that means if you're building video games is you got to get people in there who are actually your core audience and let them play. And you can't lead the witness. You can't say, don't you like our new Christian video game? No,
Right.
you just have to say, here, and watch what happens and see where they get stuck. See if they want to come back to it. But what we found was when we built that Maple game, and Maple's my favorite game that we've built. It's amazing. And we found that when kids, we would, we did these tests, and this is back in 2020. We did this demo of Maple, and we let kids test it. This is during COVID, so we had to test on Zoom and let them download the demo version on this remote device. We had to rig all this stuff. It was, anyway, long story. We found that most of our audience, like 80-something%, would come back and keep playing the game after the test was over, which is unprecedented. So we knew we'd built something that people loved because they were voluntarily, without us asking them, continuing to play it even after the test was over, days and days and days later. So we knew we had something.
Yeah. How do you build games? And you guys you've been at it for a while. Your latest stuff is like fairly new. But you got these games like Zelda and Fortnite, and in the sports world like NBA 2K, like, and your games may not be in those exact kind of categories, but I'm just using games that I know my kids play and enjoy and whatnot, right? That are like, so how do you build games at like that level?
Here's what you do. So you have to kind of think about video games in different categories. So there's console games. So Zelda, Fortnite, Call of Duty, Elder Scrolls, we could go down a huge list. But that's games where you're trying to convince people to spend $50 or $60 to have a cartridge or a disc that or I guess they can download it now, to put in their, console, and then have the experience kind of playing one game and you're using a controller and so on and so forth. But there's this whole other class of games that actually is where kids spend on their screen time of this 52.5 hours. It's the biggest bulk of their screen time, A. And B, more money was spent on just games on phones and tablets than on movies last year and the year before that, Yeah. The mobile gaming industry is bigger than the movie industry. Christians haven't realized that because we keep people talking about movies and look at this movie. That's not where kids are. Kids aren't going to the movie theater. They're just picking up their phones and their iPads and playing games.
Yeah.
So
mobile games or YouTube. That's where they're at.
Absolutely. And those classes of games are things, as you've all heard of, I'm sure, Candy Crush and Roblox and Minecraft, and you might have played Royal Match. You might have played, I could go on, the long litany.
Definitely, like my kids have definitely played like games on their iPads. So I'm trying to think
and
of
it's games like that we're serving up and providing. And these are games, by the way, that tens of millions of people play, and that people can play for hours and hours and hours and hours and hours. And so the innovation that's happened on mobile gaming in the last 10 to 15 years, since the iPhone launched, basically, has been tremendous. And there are tremendous opportunities, for storytelling and for character building and world building. And so that's where we do. That's where we swim. And what's amazing, what's really been a God thing, is the enjoyment rates. If you look at, kids using our games and choosing to come back and choosing to enjoy it are higher than the top games in the App Store. And that's what's really blown me away, is that we know that our consumers, our customers are really happy with the product.
Yeah. Yeah. That's amazing. What's the future? Like, where are you guys headed? I know you just got to it, but
Yeah.
like what's coming on in the next,
So
I don't know, 12, 18 months?
So a lot of things. One is, we're just continuing to expand our content offering is the first thing, right? So we're doing more games. We have King David's Battles coming out this month. So if you think about this, a lot of pastors, if we're honest, as men, favorite story in the Bible is King David's story, right? Because and if you think about it, what's wild is there's never been a great movie or video game about it.
I know.
I mean,
totally.
this right. It's one of the best stories, not just in the Bible, in all of human civilization. And so we got a King David's game coming out in 3 weeks. We have another game about praise and worship that's a really fun. It's beautiful the way they did the music, coming out in about 2 months or so. And then in about 4 months, finally, our other star besides Maple is Lucas, the skunk and the crocodile rockets. Every boy, I always ask him, who's your favorite character that we talk to? They grin and they say, Lucas.
Yeah.
So he's got his own game coming out. It's a spaceship game. Super cool. More games, more videos, more comics. We are, and then of course the other piece is getting the word out. Spreading the word. We are, we've had some great moments in on social media. We've had some great endorsements. We've been endorsed by the Billy Graham Evangelical Association, by Promise Keepers. We've been endorsed by Christian leaders like Dean Cain and Kevin Sorbo and Candace Cameron, and we've been blessed to just partner with some Mike Huckabee, some really great people who've really endorsed what we've done. And the other part that we're doing and spreading the word, and this is an opportunity if you're listening, where we have a partnership program where if you help TruePlay grow and kind of spread this out to your network and your community, there's a way through an affiliate program, kind of like people do on Amazon, where there's a way that it can be kind of a financial blessing, if you will, back to yourself. And it's funny, I pastor at my church, I said, well, hey, we do have this program where if you help raise awareness for TruePlay, there's a way that you can financially benefit. And he said, well, I don't know about taking money. I said, hey, listen, I'd rather not have to spend money on Facebook. I'd rather not pay, right, the social media companies to run ads. Yeah. I'd rather bless the church. And by the way, if you don't feel comfortable with that, 2 weeks ago, you had a guy in from Guatemala doing missionary work. Send the money to him. We'd rather empower Christian organizations, mission organizations that need resources and help them win, right? Or have this be a win for them in a way to help us continue to spread and get TruePlay in more people's hands.
Yeah.
And yeah.
Yeah, I love that. Where can folks go? Kind of as we wrap up, where can folks go? Just trueplay.com?
trueplaygames.com. Go to trueplaygames.com and you can read all about it, check out, download it, try it out. The affiliate program, trueplay.com. If you hit the menu, there's an affiliate link. And it's just been an exciting time. I think it's the right time because it's just, a movement is growing. I think people are realizing how toxic the content is, how dark the agenda is against our kids. I think though the need of I got to give my kids something they're going to want to use, they're going to love, but we got to give them something that's going to change hearts and minds. And so it's been awesome, and certainly enjoy the time with you and appreciate it.
I think what you guys are doing is cool, man. Making good games that are teaching people, teaching our kids the truth is fantastic. And like, just as a dad of kids that are playing games right now, there's not a whole lot out there, but I know that like games and YouTube are kind of like consumes their attention right while they're on devices. And giving parents access to something where they can steer their kids that direction and making them like excellent, like stuff that like actually keeps their attention, like some of these other top-notch things do. Like, That's incredible, man. So
Yeah.
definitely hopeful that you guys will just kill it and keep doing great work out there.
I appreciate that. It's good to be with you today, Frank.
Yeah,
Thank
absolutely. Brent, great to have you. Guys, thanks for joining. Definitely go help spread the word. So go to trueplaygames.com, spread the word, and great to see you guys. Brent, thanks for coming on. And we'll see everyone next week on another episode of Modern Church Leader. See ya.